There's a map going viral right now on social media. It is posted by the President of the United States himself on his Truth Social account. And on that map, there is a circle drawn around the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow waterway that connects the Persian Gulf to the rest of the world, the waterway that carries 20% of the entire planet's oil supply. And inside that circle, in bold letters, are 3 words that have sent shockwaves through every capital on Earth. New U.S. territory. The President of the United States just claimed a waterway that belongs to no country as American land, a waterway that sits between Iran and Oman, a waterway that the entire world depends on for energy. And when reporters asked him what he meant, Trump looked at them and said, "And I want you to hear this exactly. I mean, we control it." That was the answer. Not a legal framework, not an international treaty, not a diplomatic agreement, just we control it. This is August 18th, 2026. And what is happening today is unlike anything this war has produced so far. Stay with me, because what I'm about to walk you through in the next 10 minutes is not analysis. It is the story of a crisis that is escalating in real time, right now, today, in ways that the world was not prepared for. Let us start with what Trump actually did and why it matters so much. Posting a map labeling the Strait of Hormuz as American territory is not just a social media moment, it is a geopolitical declaration. It is Trump telling the entire world, every country that depends on that waterway, every shipping company that moves oil through it, every nation whose economy is connected to Gulf energy, that America considers itself the sovereign authority over one of the most critical pieces of ocean on Earth. Now here's the problem. International law does not work that way. The Strait of Hormuz is governed by the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. It is classified as international waters with rights of transit passage for all vessels. No single country can simply claim it. Not Iran, not Oman, and not America. But Trump did not post a legal brief. He posted a map. And in the world of geopolitics, sometimes the act of claiming something publicly, regardless of whether the claim has legal standing, forces every other country to respond. Because if they do not respond, silence looks like acceptance. And so within hours of that post going up, foreign ministries from around the world were drafting statements. Ambassadors were being called in, emergency meetings were being convened, and the message from virtually every country that responded was the same. The Strait of Hormuz is not American territory, has never been American territory, and cannot be made American territory by a social media post. But here's what makes this even more significant. Trump did not just post that map out of nowhere. He posted it the day after the 60-day ceasefire deal between America and Iran officially expired with no agreement. He posted it after threatening to bomb Oman, America's most important neutral diplomat in this conflict. He posted it after Iran and Oman reached their own separate shipping agreement for the strait without American approval, and he posted it on a day when oil prices hit their highest level since July after a fresh strike was reported on a vessel in the Strait of Hormuz. So what you are seeing is not an isolated provocation. You are seeing a pattern of escalation that is accelerating precisely because the diplomatic path has closed. The deal is dead. The deadline is gone. Oman has been threatened. And now America is planting a flag, metaphorically, on Kuwait, on a waterway it does not legally own but militarily controls. And that combination, a military control without legal authority, is one of the most unstable situations in international relations. Because it means the only thing keeping the arrangement in place is force. And force, as this war has already shown, has limits. Now let us talk about the oil prices, because the economic story of this conflict is just as important as the military story, and today it got significantly worse. Oil prices rose again today, hitting their highest level since July, after reports of a fresh strike on a vessel in the Strait of Hormuz. Think about what that means in practical terms for ordinary people around the world. Every time there is a strike or a threat in the Hormuz region, oil prices jump. And those price jumps do not stay in the commodities market. They move into petrol prices at the pump within days. They move into the cost of manufacturing everything from food packaging to car parts. They move into airline ticket prices, shipping costs, electricity bills. The economic pain of this war is not staying in the Middle East. It is spreading across the entire global economy. And today, the day America claimed the strait as its territory, the day a fresh vessel was struck, the day oil prices hit a new recent high, investors and traders around the world got a very clear message. This war is not ending soon, and the economic damage is going to keep accumulating. There's something else that happened today that almost nobody is talking about. but which reveals something deeply important about how this war is being managed. Trump announced that the United States is scaling back military drills with South Korea. South Korea, one of America's oldest and most loyal allies in Asia, a country that has stood with the United States since the Korean War in the 1950s, a country that hosts tens of thousands of American troops and provides one of the most strategically important military partnerships in the Pacific region. And why is Trump scaling back drills with Seoul? He gave 3 reasons. First, the cost. Second, the fact that South Korea declined to participate in the war against Iran. And third, this is the part that should make every American ally in the world pay attention, because he does not want to upset Kim Jong Un, the dictator of North Korea, a man who runs one of the most oppressive regimes on Earth, who has been developing nuclear weapons in violation of international agreements for decades, who has been accused of crimes against humanity by the United Nations. Trump is pulling back from South Korea because he does not want to upset that man. And on the same day, Trump rekindled his personal relationship with Kim Jong Un, the same relationship he had during his first term that produced no denuclearization, no arms reduction, and no meaningful change in North Korea's behavior. This is happening today, while Iran is striking vessels in Hormuz, while oil prices are spiking, while the 60-day deal lies dead. America is punishing South Korea and courting North Korea simultaneously, and every ally in the world is watching. Let me bring this back to the central question of this war, which is, what does America actually want? Because from the outside, the picture is becoming increasingly confusing. America went to war with Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz and prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons. Those were the stated objectives. 6 months later, the strait is still functionally closed. 3 ships passed through it in the last 24 hours, compared to 110 per day before the war. There is no nuclear deal. The ceasefire deal expired yesterday. And today, instead of announcing a new diplomatic initiative or a military strategy to break the stalemate, Trump posted a map calling the strait American territory, threatened one of his few remaining neutral partners, and cut back military cooperation with one of his most important Asian allies while reaching out to a nuclear-armed dictator. That is not a strategy for winning a war. That is a strategy for managing domestic perceptions of a war that is not going the way it was supposed to go. And the gap between the domestic narrative, we control the strait, Iran is finished, America wins, and the actual reality on the ground is now so large that it is becoming impossible to bridge. In part 2, I am going to show you exactly what that gap looks like from the perspective of the countries on the other side: Iran, Oman, Saudi Arabia, Russia, China, and what the next moves in this conflict are likely to be. Because the most dangerous moment of any war is not when the fighting starts. It is when the gap between perception and reality becomes too big to ignore. And today, that gap just got a lot bigger. Subscribe immediately and go to part 2, because this is where the full picture comes together. While Trump was posting maps on Truth Social claiming the Strait of Hormuz as American territory, something very different was happening on the other side of this conflict. Iran's government was watching, quietly, carefully, taking notes. Because every move America has made in the last 48 hours, threatening Oman, cutting ties with South Korea, claiming international waters as U.S. territory, watching oil prices spike while the deal deadline expired, every single one of those moves has confirmed what Iran's strategic planners believed from the very beginning, that America overcommitted to a war it did not fully understand, that the domestic political pressure on Trump is building faster than any military pressure on Tehran, and that the longer Iran holds on, the more America unravels from the inside. Welcome to part 2. And today I am going to show you exactly what Iran's next move looks like, and why the decision that gets made in the next few weeks will determine whether this war expands into something far larger than anything we have seen so far. Let us start with Iran's position, because understanding their perspective is the only way to understand what happens next. Iran has now survived 6 months of the most intensive American air campaign since the Gulf War. Over 13,000 targets were hit in the first 39 days alone. The supreme leader was assassinated, senior military commanders were killed, critical infrastructure was damaged, and yet Iran is still standing. Its new leadership is in place. Its military says 75% of its missile and drone capabilities remain intact. It has reached its own shipping agreement with Oman, without American approval, that gives Tehran meaningful influence over commercial traffic through the Hormuz Strait. And it has watched the 60-day ceasefire deal expire without a single major concession from the Iranian side. From Tehran's perspective, that is not a losing position. That is a negotiating position. A strong one. And Iran knows that the next move belongs to Washington, because Washington is the side running out of weapons, running out of allies, running out of diplomatic options, and running out of time before its own domestic politics make any further military action politically impossible. Now let me explain the weapons situation one more time, because it is the most important structural fact in this entire conflict, and it is getting more critical by the day. America has burned through nearly 80% of its THAAD ballistic missile interceptors. Fewer than 278 remain. Fewer than 827 Patriot interceptors remain in U.S. stockpiles. The Army's supply of precision long-range missiles is critically depleted, and analysts say it will take years, not months, to rebuild those stockpiles because the manufacturing capacity simply does not exist to produce them faster. Iran, by contrast, still has most of its firepower intact. It has been producing drones and ballistic missiles domestically throughout this conflict, cheaper weapons in higher volumes, replacing losses faster than America can replace its own depleted precision munitions. So here's the military arithmetic that nobody in Washington wants to say out loud. If this war continues for another 6 months, if there is no deal, no exit, no ceasefire, America will be fighting with dramatically less firepower than it has today, against an opponent that will have replenished a significant portion of what it lost. That is not a path to victory. That is a path to strategic exhaustion. And Iran's strategy, wait, survive, outlast, is specifically designed to get America to that point. Today, something happened at the Strait of Hormuz that underlines exactly how precarious the situation is. A fresh strike was reported on a vessel in the strait. Oil prices spiked to their highest level since July, and the U.S. government bond market responded. Bond yields rose as investors began pricing in more economic uncertainty. What does that mean in simple terms? It means that the financial markets, which are the most cold-blooded and unsentimental measure of reality in the world, are pricing in a longer war, higher energy costs, and more economic damage than was previously anticipated. The bond market is not interested in social media posts about new U.S. territory. It is interested in the actual probability of the strait reopening, the actual state of the diplomatic negotiations, and the actual military situation on the ground. And what it is seeing, what it is pricing in, is a conflict that has no clear timeline for resolution and an economic cost that is going to keep rising. Now, let us talk about what is happening in the broader region, because the war between America and Iran has never been just about those two countries. From the beginning, it has been reshaping relationships and alliances across the entire Middle East and beyond. And what is happening today with South Korea and North Korea tells you something critical about how far those ripples are spreading. Trump pulling back military drills with Seoul, because South Korea did not support the Iran war, and because he wants to maintain his personal relationship with Kim Jong Un, is not just an Asia policy story. It is a message to every American ally in the world. The message is, if you do not support America's wars, America will reduce its commitment to your security. And if courting your enemy helps America's leader feel good about himself, that takes priority over your alliance. Japan is watching this. Germany is watching this. The Gulf states are watching this. And every one of them is running the same calculation. How much can we actually rely on Washington? How firm are these security guarantees? And do we need to start making alternative arrangements? That question, that growing doubt about American reliability, is one of the most dangerous long-term consequences of this war, because alliances are built on trust over decades, and trust, once it starts to erode, is very difficult to rebuild. So where does this leave us? America today claimed the Strait of Hormuz as its territory on social media. It threatened Oman for trying to broker peace. It cut back military cooperation with South Korea. It rekindled a relationship with North Korea's dictator. Oil prices hit a new recent high. A fresh vessel was struck in the strait. The 60-day deal is dead. And Iran, patient, methodical, calculating, is watching all of it and waiting. The next escalation in this conflict is not going to come from Tehran. Iran has no incentive to escalate right now. They are winning the waiting game. The next escalation, if it comes, will come from Washington. From a president who has staked his reputation on winning a war that his own military is exhausted and under-resourced to fight. From an administration that is running out of diplomatic options and increasingly reaching for provocative gestures, maps, territorial claims, threats against neutral countries, to substitute for a strategy it does not have. The most dangerous wars are not the ones that start with a plan, they are the ones that continue without one. And right now, 6 months in, America is fighting the most important conflict of this generation without a clear plan for how it ends. Comment below. Do you think Trump's map claim changes anything? Or is this just more noise while the real crisis deepens? Subscribe, because tomorrow this story will move again, and you need to be here when it does.